1. This happened a few years ago when I was bartending in college. I was coming home down a stretch of divided highway at around 3 a.m. when I noticed a car heading towards me in the wrong lane. I doubted myself at first and thought the car was on the other side of the highway. Sure enough, the white Ford sedan passed me at a really high speed, at least 90. It's worth noting for later that I also drive a white Ford sedan. I was used to drunk and idiot drivers in the middle of the night, so I pulled to the side of the road and let him pass me. I had a moment of clarity and thought to call the police, thinking this person could hurt themselves, or somebody else. The dispatcher answered, and after telling them which road, exit, and mile marker I was at, they told me they would send a car. The state police station was only a few exits away, so I figured they would send somebody and I would just drive home. As I headed back onto the highway, I noticed some lights a few miles behind me. I live in a more rural part of southeastern Pennsylvania, and traffic at 3 a.m. tends to be truckers and cops. The car gained on me as I was getting up to speed, so I stayed in the right lane and waited to be passed. Instead, they flipped on their high beams, making it uncomfortable to drive, and rode my tailgate. At this point, I thought I was going to be pulled over by the police. I drove a white Ford sedan, and had just called about a different white Ford sedan, so I grabbed my registration from the glove box. Suddenly, the car behind me audibly slammed on the brakes and stopped in the middle of the highway. They must have shut off their car because the lights went out, and I saw what looked like the same Ford sedan from earlier. Still, I thought this may have been a police car. They had a roof rack, and it could have looked like I reached for a gun in my glove box or something. I panicked and called 911 for the second time and asked the dispatcher if they had sent a cruiser to investigate. The dispatcher was a little curt with me and assured me they sent somebody out. "Will you send a trooper out to the car, sir?" I only ask because somebody is following me and acting weird. It could be a cop, and I think I freaked them out by getting my registration. "Are you pulled over?" "No, they didn't turn on their lights." "Let me try to get the trooper we sent out." As she was talking, the car began to speed towards me and stopped inches from my bumper. Again, their high beams were on, and again they slammed their brakes. I told the dispatcher I'm pretty sure this is not the police behind me. The car sped to my bumper again and turned their high beams on, this time laying on the horn. Hearing this, the dispatcher asked me what was happening. "What's happening? Did you honk?" "That's the car behind me. I don't think it's a cop." "I'll try to get the trooper again, but I don't think that's him behind you." For some reason, this is what shook me. Before that, I was thinking I would get pulled over and maybe get a ticket. Up until then, I was going the speed limit and trying to avoid getting pulled over. I told the dispatcher, I don't care if I get pulled over, I'm speeding, and if they put their lights on, then I'll pull over. I started to accelerate, and the person behind me just kept up with me. The speed limit was 55, and they kept on my bumper the entire time. But this time they were swerving. I tried to signal for an exit, then bail on it, but they followed. At the next exit, I took the off-ramp and continued onto the on-ramp, and the car behind me followed the whole time. I thought about trying to go to Wawa, a convenience store and gas station that's pretty much the only populated place in southeastern Pennsylvania at 3 a.m. But the dispatcher and I thought that would be unsafe. She was calm and talking to another person, trying to send police to me. The other person, maybe a supervisor, asked if I could drive to the state police station. Realizing that I was one exit away, I told her I was coming there, and she said that she would have troopers meet me outside. As I pulled off to the exit, the car followed me. I blew a few red lights trying to get to the police station, and the car tried to pull into the other lane to pass me or pull up alongside me. Once the police station was in view, I put on my turn signal, and the car slammed on its brakes again, turned off their lights, and turned into a parking lot. This story ends kind of anticlimactically, as I was pulled into the police station and met the troopers. 2 of them went to find the car, and I stayed with the 3rd trooper. I thanked the dispatcher and her supervisor, and the state trooper escorted me home after taking a statement from me. I was never called to follow up or testify, so I can only assume the person didn't get caught. For those wondering, I'm a white guy who has never gotten a ticket, so I'm not really the person to comment on the social issues surrounding the police. I completely understand people's feelings about police, but I don't really have anything to add to that conversation, other than listening. I'm a guy, so I didn't feel any danger of being sexually assaulted or worse. I felt and still feel like this was an incident of road rage, but I'll never know. I thought this was a cop because of how the person followed me. I remember reading how it's common for police to follow you closely until you break a law so they can have cause to stop you. Once I saw the car pulling up quickly, I slowed to 55 and stayed that speed until they honked. We really don't have to worry about fake police where I live, but that's terrifying to think about. 2. When this took place, I was 22, and I'm 5'1", so I'm not very intimidating. I used to work as a kindergarten teacher, and I would meet parents and other family members all the time. I've made extremely good relationships with all my students, and good impressions on their caretakers. One day, about a month late, we got a new transfer student from another school on the other side of town. Right off the bat, I hated his dad. He was creepy and would always look at me with a certain look. I brushed it off at first because I've had male caretakers hit on me before since I was single at the time. The child was weird. He would bully kids in the weirdest ways. He would tell the kids that he wanted to cut off your fingers and eat them like corn dogs. I had a conference with the dad and child after school, and he didn't seem angry or uncomfortable like I would assume most parents to be. He just had a small smile like he was trying to hide how proud he was. He never took his eyes off my mouth. It made me extremely uncomfortable. We finished the conference and agreed he would have no recess for a week. Months went by and I had gotten a boyfriend. We were walking in an outdoor shopping mall on a date when I felt someone watching us. Like I felt the eyes burning into the back of my head. We walked inside a furniture store and my boyfriend looked so uncomfortable. "There's a man that's been following us. Let's go," he whispered to me. I don't say anything, but he knows I agreed. We walk out and he wraps his arm around my hip. "Miss K," I heard behind me. I turned and it was the child and the dad. "We saw you walking and thought we'd come say hi." He smirks. He looks at my boyfriend and glares at him. He is 6'3" and has the build of a Viking, but extremely fit. He has the beard and all. He could be considered extremely intimidating, but he's just one big teddy bear. "This is John, my husband," I smiled. I lied because I knew if a guy hears husband, sometimes they back off. The dad seemed very put off by this, like he was going to attack him. We awkwardly talked for a moment and drove home. Fast forward 4 years and John and I got married. We moved to a new home. It had many windows and was extremely gorgeous. We had put metal stoppers on the windows because we don't trust people, even though we were in a very nice neighborhood. John and I were spring cleaning and it felt like someone was watching me. John was next to me, washing the top of the fridge, and I instinctively looked out the window to see a car across the street. I asked John if he knew who it could be, and he said no, and closed the blinds, also being creeped out by it. That night we were falling asleep on the couch. In the living room we had 2 extremely large windows that faced the backyard. John had fallen asleep, and I was still watching when I heard weird metallic tapping on glass. I played it off and used my peripherals to look out the window. I caught a glimpse of a shadow passing by, and I woke up John. I told him someone was at the window, and thank God for my great taste in men. He used to be a police officer, and even till now is a firefighter. We keep a crowbar next to the front door and a metal bat behind the couch. He grabs the bat and hands it to me. He slowly walks around to the dining room, and under the table is a gun he keeps for emergencies. I called 911 and heard John run out the front door quickly. "You bastard, I have a gun and no problem shooting you," he yells. And since it was like 1:15 in the morning, he couldn't get a license plate. We filed a report, and the cops who came knew John, and they said they would have someone patrol the house for a week or so. Fast forward again to a month-ish later. We were in bed, and I happened to need to pee at like 3 in the morning. I came out of the bathroom and felt someone grab my face, and I had no fighting experience, so I didn't know how to defend myself. The bathroom door swings in, and there is a towel bar behind it. So when the door hits, it's super loud. I slammed my arm against the door, and John is a very light sleeper, so I was hoping he heard it. I felt really drowsy and felt the person dragging me. I woke up in the hospital and saw John in the chair next to me. I asked him what happened, and he said he grabbed the metal pipe from under the bed and attacked the man. He shattered his jaw and broke both his knees. When the man was unconscious, John turned on the lights to see it was the dad. He called the police, and I am apparently mildly allergic to chloroform. To this day, we have no idea how he got into the house. The front and back doors have glass doors, so we lock the glass and main doors before going to bed. We never open the windows farther than the guards, and there are screens on the windows. There was no sign of forced entry and no fingerprints anywhere from the guy. Now I'm putting my doctorates to good use and teaching university students. They are much more tolerable, and I feel safer since the university is a few blocks down from the fire station. To that kid, I hope you grow out of the weird sadistic phase, and to the dad, I hope you rot in jail, and we never meet again. 3. To first start off, I live in a little city in SoCal with my roommate, who happens to be my cousin. During this coronavirus pandemic, however, I've been staying with my parents who live in a very small town in NorCal. Because of my time in SoCal, I really do not like staying in NorCal, and I would rather live back in my apartment. The reason why I haven't done it is because my parents might think I will get very lonely there, since everything is closed down and my roommate is not there, as he is also with his parents. However, since I had to go back for a specific reason, my parents wanted me to take their dog, Mocha, so I wouldn't feel as lonely staying there. I loved her, so I didn't mind one bit. Mocha is a small Pomchi dog that loves to play around me and is usually by my side for most of the time. She also loves to go on runs with me, so I occasionally do take her on jogs. On a Wednesday night, I decided to go running with her. Whenever I go on my runs, I go at night because that's the time I am most energetic, and all the times I went running at night, I never had any type of encounters or occurrences. I put Mocha on a leash, and off we went. About 20 minutes into our run, I was running through this creek where there is a park next to it and a bunch of trees surrounding it. Houses to the other side. The trail was pretty narrow and the street lamps were pretty dim but still bright enough to see up ahead. As I'm running with music playing, my leash was tugged by Mocha. This usually happens when she wants to go to the bathroom, so I stopped to let her do her thing. But when I turned around, I found her in her alert stance, looking straight behind where we had ran. I just assumed she heard a squirrel or any small animal, as she usually does this when she sees one. I was tugging her leash, telling her, "Let's go, there's nothing there." She didn't oblige at first. She just kept looking behind us. It took me about 4 or 5 tugs before she finally came to me. I resumed playing my music and we both went off running. I was almost out of the creek when I would then meet a narrow sidewalk that was straight ahead. The trail only had to take short turns. Probably a minute or 2 later, Mocha tugged the leash again and went on her alert stance behind us. She did an aggressive bark and started growling. I stopped and was looking all around behind us. I was kind of freaked out because the trail had a couple of turns and curves. This means that something was most likely following us. My first guess was a lost dog, which was unsettling because Mocha is tiny. If it was a big dog, it could easily overpower her. As I was looking around the dim area for a split second, I got a black humanoid figure about 15 yards away from me, right behind a bush next to a tree. I immediately turned my eyes in the opposite direction and pretended I did not see him, but boy was my heart pounding. I didn't see any figures or his face. I just saw the outline of his upper body. I didn't have any weapons on me as a self-defense. If this guy is following me, my best solution is to run off without him trying to catch me. I tried to act cool and told Mocha let's go. The trail was going to end. I just had to make a turn and it would be a straight sidewalk that was about 300 or 400 yards. There were fences on both sides of the sidewalk, so the only solution was to keep running forward. I went into a jog right as I turned the corner, and made sure that I was out of view from the person. I went on a full-on sprint as quietly as I can. The sidewalk was ahead of me, so I made sure to just keep on running. I kept looking behind me to see if I was really being followed. About 70 yards away, I saw a person come to view from the turn, and then sprint as fast as he could towards me. As if I wasn't sprinting, I then sprinted as fast as I could. I've never sprinted so fast in my life. Looking back at it, I'm amazed at how fast I ran. Mocha was keeping up with me. About 100 yards of me sprinting, I looked back. The fucking guy was still running behind me. He had a dark hoodie on, sweatpants, and appeared to be about 6 feet tall. He was still the same distance that I had noticed him at first, which means he was pretty fast as well. The sidewalk was going to end at about 100 yards, and it will lead to a neighborhood. I can lose him there. I was slowly getting out of breath. My adrenaline was beginning to die down. I kept sprinting, hoping I wouldn't get too tired too quick. 100 yards of me sprinting. I finally made it to the neighborhood out of breath. This neighborhood was pretty broad, so if I were to keep running, the person would have spotted me right away. And at the pace he was running, it didn't seem like a good idea. My best solution was to hide. I went straight to a random house and jumped over their backyard, where I would be kept hidden behind the fence. I basically threw Mocha over and then myself. We were both panting, but I tried to keep quiet as I heard footsteps coming by. The guy had finished the trail and was now in the neighborhood. He stopped running, and I heard him panting. I was hearing him mutter as he was out of breath. He kept saying, "Fuck, what the fuck?" I was holding Mocha, scratching her so she wouldn't bark or growl. About 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps walking away, then slowly fading. I waited about 10 minutes in complete silence to be sure he wasn't close by. I peeked my head around the fence, and I was all alone now. I got Mocha and went in the opposite direction from where I heard the guy go. Even though I was tired, I tried to jog just so I could get home sooner. I kept looking around me. I was very paranoid that the guy would be there somewhere. I made it back home with no problem, and I gotta thank Mocha for pretty much telling me that someone was behind me and stalking us. I don't know how long he was following us or what he was planning on doing. I just hope he didn't get a clear glimpse of my face, because I don't want to run up to him again. And for the curious, yes, I'm a guy. However, I'm 5'7" and pretty slim. I used to lift weights a lot, but since COVID happened, I lost a lot of muscle mass because I have hyperthyroidism. My metabolism is very fast, so it's easy for me to lose fat and muscle. I'm kinda weak right now, to be honest. And since I had no weapons and this guy appeared to be 6 feet and average built, I felt that he could overpower me if he wanted to hurt me. Hell, he could have had a knife with him for all I know. Since I'm a dude, I just imagine he wanted to rob me, but obviously that is unknown. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 517. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I have a conundrum. I think a lot of us can really relate to the fella in the last story there, talking about how since the pandemic started, those of us who have spent more time at home were not as fit, and that's the annoying thing. I was just starting to get out and get physical again, get my butt in shape, as it were, when all this started. I was getting the bike out, starting to maintain it properly again, a bit earlier than I had last year. Then this hit, and, well, yeah, everything you do outside has kind of fallen by the wayside, as it were. But that is an excuse, and I'm thankfully at the point now where the exercise bug creeping up on me for a while now. I keep resolving to do something, but I think I'm finally at the point where I have to start. So that, when we've kicked this thing's butt, I'm able to actually walk about. Okay, well, I'm far from that bad yet, but I can definitely feel I have put weight on. Which will happen when you're working from home anyway, and you're, I guess, depressed, so you're giving yourself lots of treats. I don't think it's stress eating, it's just, well, this cheers me up, so I'll have that. And it cheers you up for a few minutes, and then it's gone, and you're still fat. Getting fatter, so yeah, that's got to stop. I mean, I got this fancy blender, a Vitamix blender, a few years back, with the purpose of using it to make smoothies and that, and I do, but I haven't used it for a while. So that'll get dusted off, metaphorically speaking. My kitchen isn't that bad, it's not actually dusty. But I'll start using that again, and I'll have to check the dates on the things that I got to go in it. I mean, I think the ginger and all that should be fine, because I've been using them anyway. Yeah, okay, enough rambling from me. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.